podcast for Hope Rocks, Hope Answers. Joe and I are here. Joe's going to introduce himself in a second. I'm Uncle Mike from WRWD Country Radio. I am part of this because I have become so moved about Hope Rocks and what Joe has built here and what he's doing. And along the way, we've met some people who really are heroes of mine. We have one here today with us that have won battles that I can't even imagine. And I want to do everything I can, use my platform, whatever I can, to help in a lot of ways, mainly reduce the stigma, which we're going to talk about today. But I want people to know out there is hope. Hope Answers is the movement that we're building. And there is hope out there, and we have ways of connecting you to that hope. And we want to make sure you know about it.
And as you said, Uncle Mike, it is about building support systems. And the beauty of Hope Answers is that we will be providing support individuals, support testimony, support resources for those that may think they may have a problem, or better yet, think they need a solution. Because, when you say problem, that conjures up a stigma, and we want to stay away from all of that stuff because we want to build rather than tear down. So I appreciate the kind words of Hope Rocks. Hope Rocks was started back in 2016, and I use a phrase that it was started out of arrogance or ignorance to think that we could be a conduit to helping turn this insidious tide of death at the hands of addiction, at the hands of depression, at the hands of social isolation, because we are a culture that is just so gripped by that, and it is so unnatural. And with a group of like-minded people, we were able to start this organization, and with the idea of let's celebrate the power and positivity of recovery. Let's celebrate wellness. Let's celebrate those who were or are on the journey despite setbacks, which naturally occur, but are still getting out there and working on developing the best self that they can possibly be. So I'm really excited to be part of this particular media with you, and I know we're going to have a good time. So I appreciate you reaching out to us, and Hope Rocks is definitely thrilled to be part of this endeavor.
And everyone out there listening, our real belief and our real hope is if we can help one person, we've done something. We've changed one person's life, because we know, and another person who is going to be involved with this, Frankie Wright, who is a recovering addict, who is a big part of this. He tells me all the time, when he comes on the air with me on my Saturday show as much as I can, he says, if I just reach one person, that's all I have to do. He says, because that person will become like me and will go out and help another person, and that's how it works. And it really, he believes that, and I believe it too, because I've seen it. I've watched him, and you've done it. You watched it as well. So that's the purpose of this podcast. We are here to try to give you a conduit to help. We're reaching out, and we want you to reach out to us, tell us what's going on, and we may not be able to help you directly here, but we know where to get you the help, and we'll make sure you get it. That's why we're doing this.
And we invite you to follow us on social media. We have Instagram, Facebook. The tags are at Hope Rocks Events or at Hope Rocks Festival. Communicate with us. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if we can help you, how we can help you. And we would like to interact in that way. And we have a YouTube page that has a number of resources on it, as well as our website, hoperocksevents.com. So we're here to support, to help, to serve. And in order to do that, it's got to be a two-way communication. And we're looking for your willingness to say, hey, I want to start new here. How can I start fresh?
So you can reach us through all those hashtags and the addresses he gave you. My cell phone number is 845-401-2598. 845-401-2598. You can call me 24 hours a day. I don't have the ability to counsel you, but I can get you to the people that can. And if you call me, I will answer the phone and I will listen to your story and I will make sure that your name gets in the right hands and someone will contact you. That's why we're doing this.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
So Joe, we've got a guest with us today, Chef Michael Diedrich. Diedrich, is that correct?
Diedrich, yes, sir.
Michael Diedrich is an advocate, storyteller, and a voice for the wounded who refuse to quit. There are some people who come to mental health work through textbooks. Michael Diedrich came to it the hard way. Through lived miles, scar tissue, long nights where the only thing louder than the silence was his own thoughts. He didn't choose his path. He didn't choose his path like his career. He survived into it. And that's a pretty accurate description, Michael. I mean, I know enough about you to understand there's so many, we were talking before we went on the air here. There's so many facets to this. There's so many moving parts of this, that it's sometimes hard to keep track of, but I think that describes you pretty well.
Well, I'm trying to make that to come live. Those are big shoes to fill into, but we've met through a few advocacy groups and some community outspeaks that I've been able to do. I've been trying to do putting pain to purpose. For those of you who obviously don't know, my name is Michael Diedrich. I'll open it right up. My name is Michael Diedrich. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. I suffer from anxiety, depression, PTS, and I'm also a survivor of suicide, as I've attempted twice in my life. And unfortunately, on August 28, 2016, I lost my son, Nicholas Diedrich, to suicide. 17 years of age. Kind of a perfect storm that was going on in his life at the moment. He was an avid football player, 6'4", 215 pounds, starting varsity tight end for a team that was ranked 7th in the nation. He lived down in Charleston, South Carolina. They play some big ball down there. Team went 15-0. The only team to do that since. Nobody has duplicated that. And right after that, he was struggling a little bit in his senior year. He was becoming a father, and he was struggling with what that responsibility might look like. So in the means of it, he was also starting to numb himself with alcohol and drugs, specifically, booze and beer, but also Xanax, which I didn't know much about. In my drug culture, I wasn't a pill guy. So I didn't understand what that really meant. But what that does to the neurotransmissions of the brain, what I know now, realized he was in deep trouble. The other part of it that I believe was part of a perfect storm is him being a football player, playing football as old as he was able to play football. I couldn't, we can't underscore perhaps a TBI. I know he had a concussion from a skateboarding accident a few years earlier. Was it ever settled down? Who knows? They tell you that the rates of that. And the other part of it, which is a kind of a huge person for me, as being a chef, he was living in what I call the nutrient desert that's out there, because if the gut ain't right, then the mind can't be right. And he was addicted like so many kids these days, and I can't feel that there isn't some sort of direct correlation with the cortisol and the sugar intakes and the way that we're giving these kids all this food and such an awful diet. And the school lunches to what they're eating from the fast food establishments to the toxins in our food. And if the gut microbiome ain't right, then the brain isn't going to fire. And when we're in difficult, stressful life type of situations, that type of stuff can be detrimental. We'll shoulder on, we'll get annoyed. It creates the colors dissipate. We become more angry with each other, or we lash out, or we have these crazy sugar clashes, or we can't sleep at night, right? We sit there and toss and turn. And, I truly believe as a chef, and I've learned it through experience. I mean, as a chef, we lived on cigarettes and Red Bull, right? Lived for our 2 hour, our shift drinks after working a double, and then we would recycle it into the next day. So booze is an interwoven part of my culture. It's created my living my whole life. So it's very difficult, especially from a chef, to maintain the sobriety. And the fact that I've been able to do my sobriety now for 9 years, and with no coincidence, because I don't believe in those sort of things, it's also been 9 years since I lost my son. So, and also 9 years since I've met Joe. So the idea that, you say before the show, if you've helped one person, well, this guy next to me has already done that mission. So we can check that box, because I truly believe that I am here a lot because of Joe. I mean, there's a lot of underlying people in my life that have helped me through that, but Hope Rocks has been a big cornerstone of keeping me to this point. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's Joe. That's why we're doing this. That's what Hope Rocks is all about. And that's what reeled me in. The first time you and I talked to each other, I mean, I had a background in this already, but when he explained what they were doing, I was like, well, that makes perfect sense. We should all be doing that. Why aren't we? And let's do it. Let's get together and let's do it. And that's what we're doing.
And I'm so admirable about the adaptability of the Hope Rocks.
Yeah.
Because we've been talking about this over the past years since I've become an advocate with it.
Not to interrupt Michael, but Michael is part of the Hope Rocks Advisory Board. He is an instrumental person, cog, in what we're trying to do. So his voice really resonates, and so we really appreciate any input that he has. The perspective he has is exactly the perspective that we need to pass along to help people with stigma, to help people come out of the darkness, come out of the bushes. Hey, I can relate to him. I can relate to that story. Maybe I can tell my story. Well, in telling a story, there's an incredible power to it. And Michael, we appreciate you, and we're so glad that you're part of this particular mission. And we know that the work you do is a constant reminder of the loss that you've endured and how difficult that must be on a second to second basis.
It's certainly a thing that doesn't go away. And I certainly understand what you were mentioning about the stigma. A lot of times you lose it after the fact, right? Which is too late then, right?
Yeah.
When we come to this, we all of a sudden we lose a loved one close to us, and now all of a sudden now we're waking up to the signs where we really have to. I mean, most of the guys I've run with, they're a bunch of tough guys. They're tattooed. They're not supposed. They're supposed to suck it up, right? We're not supposed to, especially guys. We're supposed to have this machismo about ourselves, and we're supposed to carry a heavy weight, and we don't necessarily know how to, regulate that type of situation, because, grief is interesting. You don't go through grief. Grief goes through you. So if I wasn't able, there was a couple ways this could end with me, right? This could either be something I would, carry inside and just be like angry at the world and just never settle down, or as I feel it, break me so wide open that I have no choice but to become vulnerable and to be able to speak about it. And that's kind of what it becomes the power in that. And when you see the lives that you change just through allowing somebody to know that you're not alone, that, regardless of, everybody has a story. And we have to make sure that it's okay that we can talk about this story in uncomfortable situations. And I think that if we can do that, especially with kids, to allow them to be able to, because we're just talking about, we're kind of a bunch of old timers in here in a way, but the kids that are coming up, you could see that there's already energetically disturbed in so many different ways. And of course, as a chef, I see this all the time. In the kitchen, a lot of times the restaurant business is their first job. They're dishwashers, they're bus kids, they're, all the little links within that. I'm always interested to see where they're at, in their social life. Like, are they, a lot of them tend to be, the restaurant business, I'm an Anthony Bourdain guy. We're really a bunch of pirates back there. It's really what it is, It's like, I think you referred to it, it's like, we're more like a Mexican chain gang back there working in a kitchen, just because that's really what it is. It's not the Emeril Lagasse's of the world. It's not what you see, the Bobby Flays and all these, there's real hardcore guys in there that,
Sure.
A lot of us
It's a tough business.
It's a tough business. We have a 75% failure, but I knew it right at the beginning because I was always a little on the outside. I never really fit into a lot of the cliquey stuff. I was, my trauma started very early. I was in 9 different schools by the time I graduated high school. So it was a lot. My family wasn't even military, but my deep epigenetical wounds, as we would put it, goes back to feeling valued. right? To feeling like, I was a burden or I wasn't worthy of. And, my father, my biological father died when I was in fifth grade. I carried that into my 20s. I had nothing to do. He died of a heart attack. But my mind and the way we talk about it, I speak about Dr. Gabor-Mate a lot because he doesn't talk about why the addiction, but why the pain. Because chances are what we're doing when we're picking up whatever ism it is, whether it's alcohol, whether it's booze, whether it's gambling, whether it's shopping or something that is not healthy for us, eating disorders, the same thing. It's a lot of times it's something that hasn't been addressed within us that we're looking to try to validate within ourselves. And we have to kind of go to what I call the deeper part of the onion, right? When you look at an onion, the cross section of the onion, it has all these different layers, much like a tree, right? So we have to sometimes get to that core of the onion to really understand where we're at and what we're going on. And, you know, some of my big advocacy I'm trying to call feed the fire, which I'm actually doing with some kids locally in grassroots stuff, bringing them in and saying, what do they like to eat? How do they eat? Is eating at the dinner table? Are they, back in my day, 5 o'clock, we would come home when the lights came on, right? The street lights come on. And chances are we'd have dinner around the dinner table. Whether that was always stressful or not, sometimes,
Wow.
depending on the family environment, it wasn't. But the fact that we still did it. A lot of times these kids today, they're grabbing their food, they're going into playing the video games, or they're eating it alone. I try to bring back, because one of the great things about the restaurant business is its camaraderie. It's the idea is I used to do something with Nicholas towards, best and worst of your day. So we'd make a little conversation going around the table about what was the best part of your day and what was the worst part of your day. And it allowed everybody to have just this nice open dialogue. And the kids felt comfortable with it, right? Because it becomes a shared space that everybody can now feel open to be able to talk about whatever it might be. And, those little subtleties, Anthony Bourdain talks about, world peace could be, solved around a barbecue.
Yeah.
Right? Because food becomes the great medium. Food becomes that great ability to taste flavor sensations and just to be having that camaraderie around the dinner table. And as a chef, I love it so much that I get to see that on pretty much a nightly basis, right?
It's interesting. One of the things that we're going to focus on is stigma and how dangerous stigma is. Stigma kills.
Yeah.
And not directly, it doesn't kill, but it keeps people from getting help because of what they're worried about what other people think. But what you just described, that best of your day and worst of your day, that is a great tool, because not only are you're sharing stories and you're actually associating with another human being instead of on a screen or on a
Right.
But so maybe one of your worst things happened to me 3 or 4 days ago, and I haven't talked about it, and I don't know how to deal with it, but I hear how you dealt with it.
Yeah.
And that interaction is what heals people.
Exactly.
I mean, you hear about, I've been fortunate in my life. I've met a lot of billionaires and athletes and artists, and every one of them has ever told me, you want to know what the key is to doing what I'm doing? You're never the smartest guy in the room. You surround yourself with the smartest people and you learn from them. And that's the way it works. And when you finally realize that, you're going to go a lot further.
My grandmother always used to tell me growing up, if I'm the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah. And you're all in trouble.
Exactly. So I appreciate you. It kind of conjured up a nice fond memory there. Yeah.
But what we're talking about, Joe, really is communication is a big part of it. And the fear of not being able to communicate is deadly, and that's what stigma is.
And it's interesting because, I've been down this road with mental health for some time. As I was mentioning, even with my road with addiction, I have 8 white chips, which means I've been in the rooms 8 times, had the courage to go in the room 8 times. It's not how many times I tried to stop. I mean, I had so many dry Januaries, I stopped counting, but I was always picking up afterwards. Of course, living in the lion's den there, with a bar, part of my living, my career, it was very difficult and very hard to get past that stigma. But, moving forward on it, I realized that, we as a community, you can start to just ask those subtle questions, right? To start to lessen it. And, in my early stages when I was, the AA rooms and the NA rooms were what I needed at one point. At one point, I had to be institutionalized because I had suicidal ideation, and I had so much depression. I was on many prescription drugs at work, the Wellbutrin, the Zolofts. But for me, and I don't like to get into prescription shaming in any way like that, and I've had to learn to curb myself in doing so, because if it works and it keeps you here, then by all means, right? But what it did for me as a chef, it made me very vanilla. It didn't allow me to do the things that I used to like to do as a creative chef. I'm left brain, right? So I have to be that. But what that did to me, it kind of just made me like, all right, well, just, not a little fire in the belly, if you will. Didn't want to hike as much. I gained more weight than I weighed more than I did. And I realized at that point in time, it wasn't going to work for me. And later on, and Joe's been introduced, and I'm not going to say 9 years. I've also been going to Lexi for almost 10 years now, which is great. And Lexi does what I call neurofeedback and biofeedback. And what that does, and it's amazing when you do what they call brain mapping. You put the swim cap on your head, and it has all the electrodes go off, and it goes onto a computer screen, just like you're looking at a soundboard here, right? And it's showing you all the different meridians and how you, like an EKG of your heart, but it's showing you all the different, you have 12 different parts in you, and it's all going all over the place. And she'll record this for maybe 3 minutes. And I'm always fascinated by looking at the screen going up and down and all this. And I'm like, wow, that's just 3 minutes. And that's just when I'm in a good place, right? Mm-hmm. I'm in a place, my feet are on the ground, I'm breathing, I'm very calm and relaxed. I look at that, what would this look like on a Friday night dinner service, right? Where I got people barking at me and, the stuff going on. I'm trying not to overcook steaks here. And, where is the mind in that energy? And I don't think we really, it was really like that awe-inspiring moment. At the moment when she turned around to me and she said, your addictive part of your brain, your impulsive part of your brain, and your trauma part of your brain are on reverb. They're overacting. Mm-hmm. So it's voo, 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 constantly. It made sense for my insomnia. It made sense why I was staring at the clock till 3 o'clock in the morning and I couldn't sleep at night. It made sense, the fact that, my addiction and my impulsivity became so closely related. It didn't fix the problem. But like a good roadmap, it tells you, okay, maybe you need to start to be careful about these things. Your triggers, to know the lay of the land in your own brain. And we all our brains have that same, and what it does now is she works with what they call the neuroplasticity of your brain. So if I have a part of my brain that she knows that needs to be turned up a little bit, so to speak, she'll put and it's amazing. I find it pretty fascinating in some ways where she can. And the best way I can say it is if you've ever been on a boat, right? And you feel like the waves start to get you going a little bit, it's amazing on how she can just turn if she probably really wanted to mess me up, she could probably go, but just with just having a little electrode on the core, we realize the fragility of this thing.
Yeah.
This thing up here is tofu.
Yeah.
It's the consistency of tofu. We think that we got this hard noggin up here, but it's tofu. And it has this amazing ability to rewire itself. And it goes to me that, and this is why I so advocate and I go to the gut part of it, your second brain's down here. They say 80 to 90% of your neurotransmissions in your brain start with your vagus nerve back here. So if you're feeding this garbage, which teenage kids these days, you work a lawyer about their ADD and all the spectrum disorders and all these things that are going on, I sometimes don't necessarily want to say, well, what are they eating? Where does their diet start? And it's interesting because also in these past years, I am blessed because I'm in my industry that I do. Old Ford Farm in Gardner, New York. I get my raw milk every single week. I brew kombucha every single week. I drink a half gallon of kombucha every single week. I have the blessing to have kimchi at my disposal. I have the blessing to have all these great fermented foods. I have the clean sourced foods, which, it's not always easy. Even my own industry, I have to. I don't like to be, kitchen confidential here in a way, but some of the stuff I'm like scratch my head on when my owner brings. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I could sell it as a special, but I always joke. I go, yeah, you never trust the skinny chef, right? right? If he's going to push this soup of the day on you and he's not going to eat the soup of the day, what are you telling me here, right? You get a little
Yeah.
suspicious, right?
If you get in the kitchen and he's ordering takeout, that's just bad.
You know what I mean? But I feel like the same people that are working in all these fast food places, as I call these nutrient deserts, these Bojangles, these, we live with a world right now where it's like Oreo cookie farms, and it's very difficult. I mean, because now we're fighting so many different things. We're not just fighting a stigma, but we're fighting how do I source these things out. There's a great app out there, by the way. It's called Bobby Approved, and you just scan the barcode. I have to say, there's a lot of things it doesn't have in there, and he's extremely particular, especially when it comes to process anything. It's going to get flagged, and sugar, it's going to get flagged. But it gives you the idea of why he's flagging it. If it's something you could live with, it's fine. But once it starts to get into it, you're like, oh, wait a minute. It gives you the knowledge. So you can go to any grocery store and at least get the knowledge from. That's the smart part about these devices, if we use them to the right thing, instead of using these glow screens till 2 o'clock in the morning, right?
But it's interesting when we're talking about addiction recovery, we're talking about mental health. Sugar, most of our population is addicted to sugar. It's in everything that is made, and salt.
Yeah.
You're in a restaurant, everything is. I mean, when you go to a restaurant,
and it's different sugar than when I started.
Yeah.
It's so different now.
But it's an addiction that you become addicted to it, and if you go to a restaurant, something like you're talking about, where that's you're putting some. They're not initially going to say this stuff's terrible. I don't want to eat this, because they have to the body has to get used to it.
Well, there's a couple of points, and there's a thing that I love, the AA rooms. I always love the guys. They're sitting out there during the breaks. They're smoking cigarettes. They got their coffee full of sugar, and they're eating their donuts and cookies and saying, "Thank goodness I'm free of addiction."
Yeah.
Right. It's like, it's like it's interesting. I used to say it. I sometimes say, are we some sort of special hospital these days? Because what I see is how many dietary, back in the day, there was always a small group that would come in that would have a dietary issue. But now you're having at least one or two tables a night, or
Yeah.
one or two customers a
yeah.
night that have, something, I mean, the craziest one I've ever had is like, I can't have carcinogens, so they can't do grilled vegetables or nightshade vegetables. And you had to go look up what nightshade vegetables were. I mean, there's some people, but the gluten-free thing is huge. I truly believe the gluten-free is because of how we harvest. I spent some time in Europe. I staged over there in a certain part of my career after I got my salt, working down in the city and doing all that crazy stuff, working for some top restaurants down there. And you're like, well, what's next? Well, to a chef, Europe, right? I was told many years ago, actually, when I was staging over in Europe, whatever you do as a chef, you do it with French techniques, but Italian principles. And this guy was telling it to me in French and Italian, and I had no clue what the hell he was saying, because I didn't understand the language. I heard bits and pieces. Finally, after the guy kept berating the chef, because you work in these kitchens for room and board, right? You got meals, you got a place to speak, and you work for free. That was the deal. And it was a great program. I'm sure they still do it, but this was before 9/11 and stuff. So I don't know if things have changed. But anyhow, it was a great thing. Got to go to some of these most amazing places, chateaus in Devon-les-Bains, where Charlie Chaplin lived. I mean, the industry gives you the ability to get a job in any town.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you could, wherever you want to work. You want to work at a Greasy Spoon, like a Guy Flair's type of thing, or you want to work at a bougie French laundry, you can find your way within that. But going over there, realizing the markets don't exist here like they do. They source their food so much better. I know we were talking about sourcing food early on. Most of the places, the fishmongers are gone, right? I mean, everybody's the Cisco's of the world, the big food plate. Now they're cornering the market. Back in the day, there was small produce houses. There was small fishmongering places. Now in Europe, that still exists. And I think that's like, it's the hardware store, right? The hardware stores we used to have on all the corners, now there's Lowe's and Home Depot. We sometimes trade off the convenience for, less quality in a way,
Yeah.
right? And I think we have to look at that in a different format, right? And breaking down the walls of stigma. It's, I know he wasn't able to be here tonight, but Andrew O'Grady, I hear him all the time. No wonder he's got laryngitis, because every time I turn on the radio, I hear him all the time. He's doing so many radio spots, I guess.
Me a lot, yeah. But he does have laryngitis.
But he has been doing such a wonderful thing about changing the stigma. He's doing so many wonderful things, especially for one of the larger mental health advocacy groups and resources within the Hudson Valley. It's a pretty stellar thing to do, yeah.
And it's because he does it from the heart. It's genuine. It really a passion of his to try and change things. And he's been changing things here. Fortunately, here in the Hudson Valley, we've got organizations like his. There's some great veterans organizations too that are really stepping up and trying to make a difference. It's interesting, you were talking about dealing with the kids and trying to understand how they eat. It's not just the kids.
Yeah.
I drove a tractor trailer for 30 years before I did this.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something, it destroyed me.
Oh.
I'm diabetic. I've got all kinds of issues that I'm dealing with that probably would not be anywhere near as bad if I'd eaten differently. But when you're in a position, some of these professions where eating is just because you have to, it's not because you want to. And you're grabbing whatever you can in a hurry. And fast food is it's processed food that's horrible for you. You'd almost be better not eating than eating it.
And that's what I was mentioning about the nutrient desert. We're blessed here in the Hudson Valley. We have some of the greatest, I argue, some of the greatest farms in the country, arguing to California.
Yeah.
And I know there's a great farm, which is probably the greatest in the United States and just outside of Milan, Ohio, called the Chef's Garden. I mean, this guy is doing what's right. He's putting the nutrients in the soil. He's taking carrots that are 200% greater nutritional value.
Yeah.
It's about finding the means to do it. And unfortunately, like what you were saying, when you're driving a truck and you're dealing, I'd spend a lot of times driving back and forth to Charleston on that I-95. There's nothing. There's nothing. If you want to get a nutritious meal, there's nothing along the lines. And even when you sometimes get to these inner city places, especially in these smaller towns, it's only an Applebee's or a Bojangles or those types of things. And if you start to really look at the processing stuff and the chemicals that are being used in those, it's not dining out, you know? It's knowing your butcher, knowing your fishmonger, knowing your farmer. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because it's the culture that we've created here in this country.
Yeah.
And it's really entrenched in this country now. And to try to change, like what you're talking about, if you do get a little bit successful, like the farm you're talking about, sooner or later, a big corporation is going to come along and say, we don't need this competition. We're going to offer him enough money where he'll go away.
Yeah.
And we'll either do away with it or we'll change
But you know what's interesting? I feel that, one of the things I've always found in this journey of mental health and this thing is there's something like a crazy statistic of 75% of the people who go out and seek mental health actually find a great response in getting better. Mm-hmm. Where they actually, as long as they stick to their program and whatever that might be, they continuously make little steps working better and being able to have a quality of life, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's part of a huge statistic, to break that stigma, to say, wait, if I actually go to get this help, it could change my life. Because when you get better from a mental health, just like you can actually have your best days could be ahead of you. Mm-hmm. Right? Because now you're living your life with clearer eyes and not that film under the glass that we're looking through, right?
Most people that I know who have successfully taken the journey and have gotten sober and have stayed sober will tell you that they had no idea what they were missing and they had no idea that life could be as good as it is. Frankie tells you all the time, he can't believe how great his life is.
And it's important that people, especially at the get-go.
Yeah.
Because what happens is once you start to change your diet, you start to change your meditational practices, you know what happens with your body? It freaks out. Because your nervous system is so adjusted. And I call it, it's like the grief. Your body will grieve the alcoholism, because for years that was your thing. Right? It was the thing that you used that was there every time you had a difficult time in your life or a celebratory. It was your confidant. It was your, I know for me, I talk about it all the time. That disease is out there doing push-ups right now. Mm-hmm. It's going to wait for that vulnerable time. And unless I'm really hyper-vigilant through that, but I feel I get to the labor that I no longer even crave it. Mm. I actually kind of don't put myself in those positions anymore. I mean, I work in the restaurant business, but then when I'm done with the clock, I'm out the door. And if I have to do an event with somebody, I kind of make my peace. I come in, I do a show, but I'm never the late guy there, right? I'm not staying to the end.
Yeah.
I do the Irish goodbyes a lot of times, where you just kind of sneak out the back door.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I think that's where a lot of people might give up. And when people get sober, those first 90 days are hell, right? Because, especially the first 24, where you can actually die. You can, detox is a real thing. And we do have such a sick society. I mean, I always question, we all probably know the answer. Why were the liquor stores open during COVID? Because the hospitals were already overburdened with that and how many people would be. So if that doesn't show you where we're at with a lot of this stuff, I look at it nowadays, there was a story someone wrote not too long ago. If alcohol was becoming legal today, they would never legalize it. Because it causes so many, it was the barons of the time. And now it's become such a culture. By no means am I talking about prohibition or anything like that, because I have too many people that rely on this as my livelihood. Well, but there's something to be said to that we've been a little callous about it.
Well,
we put it too much in the forefront of every existence.
Why is cigarette smoking permitted in this country?
Right.
It's the single most deadly thing that we do.
Right.
And the government puts their little stamp on the side from the Surgeon General, but they don't stop it.
Right.
And it's caused all of us that pay health insurance are paying 3 times the amount because of cancer from cigarette smoking.
Yeah.
And yet it's still out there.
It's
but to your point about it's funny that so many of the people I know that are successfully sober now and 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, tell you don't understand. Getting sober, getting detoxed is the easiest part of the whole process. It's staying clean and working through all the things that the triggers you talk about. You lost your son.
Yeah.
My God, as an addict, I can't imagine what that puts you through.
It's
and losing your you hear the old adage about no parent ever wants to see their child go before them.
Right.
So you had to go through that part of it, but yet you had to deal with keeping yourself sober and so on and so forth. I can't imagine that. I can't imagine how you did it. And you are such a valuable tool because there's a lot of people that are listening to us right now that are going through what you went through and have no idea how to handle it.
Yeah.
And the only person that's going to relate to them is you or someone like you.
It's the one
peer-to-peer mentoring is the only thing that works.
The thing that's come to me, and when I was early in my sobriety, I was blessed that I had a good sponsor who I didn't know it at the time, but he had lost his daughter. He had lost his daughter to cancer, but you lose a child, you lose a child. So
sure.
It was something in that moment, he stopped me from having that drink and having that first drink. And that's the key to it. And then once I was finding my way through suicide and through the grief rooms, I was at an Out of the Darkness walk, and there was just one guy that says, honor your loved one. It's the only sign he was saying. And I've used that, I still etch in my mind the first time I saw it. And as I was through that, I said, every day of my life is going to be doing that. In whatever way possible I can do to perhaps help another kid who's struggling, another adult who's struggling, or perhaps be able to be comfort to somebody who is going through the unimaginable of losing that stigma to somebody who loses, suicide has a huge stigma. I still know people who recent times have died from an overdose or suicide, but they don't say they just say they've passed on.
Yeah.
They don't unexpectedly.
Yeah.
They won't, and I get it. It's hard to say it, but what is it? Ryan's house. He makes sure that, he makes that great story that he talks about that my son died of an overdose. This needs to be spoken about. My son died of suicide. If we can, when we realize, because one of the things that I noticed about suicide that I didn't know beforehand, for every one person who completes suicide, 20 have attempted. That blows your hair back, man.
Why? Yeah.
That just, and I know for myself, I've tried twice in my life. One of the things I've talked to, again, another group that Tammy Lee Joy that also came into, we were working on a book. And I thought the book was going to be an interesting book because it was going to be made by a father, a mother, a daughter, and a veteran. And my point it was sex, drugs, rock and roll, and suicide, just because I thought it would be a good catchy thing. And the first page of the book would say there's enough stories about the first three. This would be talking about the last subject, and just having it from these people's perspective.
Sure.
And you can't help but feel that. And I think that that's where we're in such an energy shift right now, because so much is stimulated on the outside of the world that we are buzzing more so than we ever should be. These devices, these electronical frequencies, our brain isn't meant for this type of thing. So
overload.
It's an overload stress, which is why I say the important part of diet is so important, because if we don't feed ourselves these things, like you mentioned, and when you're driving on you needed that energy because you needed to drive another 8 hours. Your shift wasn't over. And, driving a truck for long distances, it's a pretty important job, and a pretty, and the bosses want you there, when they want you there.
Well, not to mention, you're going down the road with 80,000 pounds, you could kill 40 people if you fall asleep.
Yeah, exactly. You have to be on point.
Yeah.
And, it's such a thing that we really have to understand, that it's okay not to be okay.
Absolutely.
But it's not okay not to talk about it and to bring it out, whether you journal it, whether you look online. I mean, there's so many different avenues out there that you can get. As they say, I'm doing a little out of the box. I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of Qigong exercises, a little trying to slow this thing that doesn't want to slow down up here in the head. But when I start to breathe, I start to do that. I do havening techniques, which are just relaxing your body, slowing down the mind. I mean, I talk fast. I'm in the kitchen, so everything it's like pretty quick moving. But yeah.
But the important thing is working for you.
Yeah.
And that's the key to all of this. You've got to find something that works for you.
It
may work for you. It might not work for me. I might have to find another way, but at least there is something that I can look at you and say, he made it. It's working. There is help there. And that's what Hope Rocks is about. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
This is an interesting first podcast. I've been fascinated with the conversation. I hope the people listening to us understand why we're doing this. This conversation needs to be had all the time among people who never talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's what this podcast is going to be about. We're trying to reach people who don't talk about things like this, who don't want to talk about things like this. Nobody wants to talk about suicide. Nobody wants to talk about addiction. But the people that are in the throes of it and the people that are grieving from it are trying to make sense of it all. They got to hear somebody who went through it. They've got to understand that there is hope, and that's what Hope Rocks is and Hope Answers is all about.
And the depression and the anxiety that we're all under. I mean, even so, a lot of people I know that they're not suffering with any of the drugs or the alcohol, but they're depressed.
Yeah.
They're being swallowed up by and it is like I remember Ben's Friends is a great advocacy group that's out there, especially for guys of me. It's online. It's a Zoom thing. It's a great advocacy thing called Ben's Friends. AA meetings at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and 11 o'clock at night throughout the country, which is great because it's on Zoom, so any of us chef guys can do it. But it's interesting because we have to sometimes make that first step. If you see somebody that's kind of a little off, somebody comes in that's typically jovial, maybe they're late, or people, most language is nonverbal. So, we carry our emotions. Sometimes we carry it on our sleeve, or sometimes we'll carry it locked in our jaw, or just with the stiffness or the anxiety or this.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we see these types of things, we have to shake it up a little bit. We have to say, hey, you good? Mm-hmm. You all right? What you got going on? How'd that thing work out with such and such? Knowing something that you can draw on. Right? That maybe that you knew that they were going through something, because we don't know. As much as I'm doing right now with advocacy, I'm also the primary caregiver to an 84-year-old woman who has Parkinson's, Lewy body dementia, and is my mother.
Yeah.
So it's like, my work is not done. I have to make sure there's a lot of moving parts.
Sure.
And we have to be the best advocacy for our own selves.
Mm-hmm.
And it is all about community. Mm. Because let's say I could get into, how much both the healthcare and the mental health care, there's so many flaws in this. We've been to Dutchess County Community, the Chambers meetings there with another group I worked with is called Healthy Minds for Children, which is an advocacy group just to be able to get kids mental health.
Hmm.
So when you do have a crisis and you have the courage to go into the hospital, that there's actually a care, there's a protocol.
Yeah.
And right now there's a place in High Park called the Anchor that I believe is supposed to be opened. I can't question it now because I haven't seen it with my own two eyes, but I believe it's a youth facility that is meant for people who are having mental health crisis.
Well, unfortunately, we don't. One of the things we're going to do with these podcasts is we're going to keep them to the point, which this one was really to the point and great. But Joe, we really we're trying to spread the word, and one of the things we didn't even touch on is the pharmaceutical industry and what they've done. They've done a lot of damage in this country, and we'll get to that in future podcasts. We'll bring people in here who can.
I truly believe.
I mean, I'm just talking off the top of my head, but I know myself a lot of medications that I take that I wish I wasn't taking, but I'm taking them to stay alive, and they've convinced me that I need them to stay alive. So that's a whole nother. And they created a lot of with the opioids. They created the problem.
I think it's a difficult to put trust into the industry that actually created the problem.
Yeah.
To look for the solution within the
But
problem.
we'll get to that in future episodes.
Yes.
Joe, I'm fascinated, Joe. This whole conversation was, I thank Michael so much for coming and sharing with us what you shared, because every time you share something, a lot of times it's something nobody's ever heard before, but maybe they've been thinking about it, or maybe they have someone in their life that's going through it. That's the other thing we want to really hammer before we sign off here is sometimes the person going through the mental illness, the addiction, the depression, the anxiety is so burdened by what they're going through, they don't seek help. And sometimes they don't think they need help. It's somebody on the outside looking in that has to say, hey, Michael, man, there's something going on here, and if they get a reaction to you, mind your own business, go find somebody who knows how to deal with it and have them contact Michael.
And truthfully, when you go through those things, it affects you. Your mental health will affect your physical health in some way or another.
Absolutely.
It's interchangeable. We're all one organism here. And, we have ancient wiring going on here. And I think it's very important that we continue passing this message along. This is good stuff.
And I think it's important that anybody listening to us, everybody listening to us, I don't care how great your life is, we've all got demons. We've all got things that are dragging us down. No matter if you're the happiest guy in the world, there's something that's dragging you down. And I can tell you from experience that if you let it drag you down long enough, it's going to overcome you and you're going to lose the battle.
Yeah.
So don't think, even though you've got the world by the tail, that somebody's not waiting around the corner with a 2x4 to smack you in the back of the head, because it's going to happen. And when I say that, I'm talking about demons is what I'm talking about.
Well, we get throw punched by the universe all the time.
Yeah.
Life comes on life terms, and it's very difficult. And, we have to have tools in our toolbox when life gets like that. Yeah. And reaching out and having groups to organize with is
my father. I never forgot as a child, my father would put his arm around me and say, kid, there's only two people in this world that are perfect, you and me, and I'm not so sure about you. And he used to tell me that all the time, and he'd smile when he said it. Yeah. But it's true. You gotta realize that it's an imperfect world. Yeah. It's getting more and more imperfect by the day, and we need to find ways to cope with it.
Yeah.
And that's what this is all about.
Yes, we create more tools.
Yep.
And a bigger community and a bigger circle.
Joe, why don't you give the communications again, how they can get a hold of us?
Well, you can always find us on our socials, our Instagram page, Facebook page, at Hope Rocks Events or at Hope Rocks Festival. Our email, please contact us, hoperocksevents@gmail.com. Check out our website where you'll find videos like this and plenty more, hoperocksevents.com. And speaking of events, Michael and I had a brief discussion about a week ago about an idea that he had for an event that Hope Rocks would love to be involved with, taking place in Orange County.
We would love to have it at our restaurant. My boss is evidently, as everybody has been touched by suicide or overdoses, he wants to do something.
And that restaurant is?
It's called Storm King Lounge and Fair, located in Cornwall, in New York.
I was born in Cornwall.
And we're looking to do it it's right in the center square, the old theater, actually. And we're probably looking to do it. We're kicking around the date on Memorial Day weekend, the Sunday before. And also because of that weekend, also because of Mission 22 and the veterans, and the idea maybe it is not a bad time to have a little bit of homage.
Sure.
To not just the ones that lose in battle, but the ones that lose their battle themselves, right?
Sure.
So we're trying to kick around that date. I think it works good for us personally. It is graduation weekend, so it's definitely going to be busy for us, but it might be a good idea. And, we'll take the whole place. We typically do a great fundraising episode and Hope Rocks, and we can get a whole group of people involved in that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Sounds like a
Yeah,
great idea.
we would be thrilled to be involved in something like that. As a matter of fact, we got a couple of other things that are on the schedule. On May 2nd, Hope Rocks Hardball returns to Cantine Field in Saugerties, where we feature key high school baseball teams from the Mid-Hudson Valley and the Capital District. It is a great day of great baseball with fantastic talks where we use the public square to continue to tear down the stigma and open up the discussion and provide resources for anyone who may need them.
And those kids throw some heat, man.
Yeah.
They're the real deal.
They,
Some good games that you see in there, no doubt, yes.
And you never know who may show up. Last year we had Darryl Strawberry come up from St. Louis, and that was a great surprise, and he talked about his journey. And, you never know who's going to show up. So put that on your calendar, May 2nd, and that's at Cantine Field in Saugerties and Hope Rocks Hardball. We're also in the pre-planning stage for bringing back the Hope Rocks Festival to Cantine Field. It's a 2-day festival that we tentatively have scheduled. Well, it's scheduled for August 15th and 16th. And if you haven't been to one of those festivals, there's so much there. There's more there than you could absorb in a weekend. And again, during that festival, we have a 24-hour softball event where it's called Hope Rock Softball, where we play softball for fun. Teams sign up, they get involved, they play for 2 hours. We don't keep score. It's co-ed, it's all ages. It's a lot of fun. And again, it's a way to support, it's a way to engage, enlighten, and empower yourself in these issues. So we look forward to coming back with another edition of Hope Answers, part of our Hope Rocks recovery program.
Yeah, we're going to do this often as we can, and we've got a lot of guests we've already talked to that are going to come and do this show.
But they've got a huge, they've got a real big set of shoes to fill after this
Michael set the bar.
Well, I don't know about that. Yeah,
fabulous job.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, Michael. I really did.
Well, I
I'm really
appreciate that.
grateful
Thank
for
you.
all your honesty, and I learned a lot myself just sitting here listening to you.
Yeah, we got a lot more to talk about. As
Absolutely.
I say, we can do deep dives into the gut itself, right?
Well, sure.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about
didn't even get to. But
yeah.
Hope Rocks Festival, by the way, we are working on some pretty cool entertainment that we're trying to get involved here. One of our biggest heroes, and Frankie, every time I even mention his name, just kind of drools.
Melts.
Jelly Roll. And Jelly Roll is someone who I've really, I've done country all my life, classic country. And when he first started, I'm looking at him like, what? But he is one of the top country artists now because his songwriting is so real. And some of the things he says, Frankie all the time will say, tear that rear view mirror off and watch through the windshield. That's what you got to, and it's such a really poignant thing to say.
Yeah.
And I don't care what you're going through. You really should tear the rear view mirror off and focus on what's in front of you because you can't change what's behind you.
Absolutely.
And he says that all the time. So he's somebody we're talking to. I mean, it's a long way off yet, but we're trying.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a headliner for Saturday night. And then we're going to have we got so much local talent here.
Right.
That have already signed up that want to do this.
Our biggest obstacles now are making sure we have the manpower to put this on as well as the financial support.
Well, if you go to that website, you can sign up to help us.
Absolutely.
And we need sponsors. You want to be a sponsor, we need them as well. And we're going to get more physical about advertising this real soon. But we're working on it. It's going to happen on the 15th and 16th, and it's going to be a great weekend for everybody.
No doubt about it. Very excited.
That's excellent.
All right, so we will see you next time. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, you have any ideas for us to cover, just reach out to us, email us. Uncle Mike gave his phone number.
Yep. You can reach
put that
me
on the screen. Don't you worry about that. And then
You could always
Join us next time.
And you could always reach me on the socials, on Facebook and Instagram. I do a lot of deep posts about things. And sometimes in this world, we need to have a little bit of that.
Well,
Yeah.
it's nice to know there's somebody out there you can talk to.
Yeah.
And that's really how it all starts.
Right.
And the peer-to-peer mentoring is the only thing that works. I have been through a lot of it from the family side of it and dear friends I've lost, but I have no idea what it's like to be an addict.
Yeah.
And I never will, I hope.
Right.
But I do know people who can help you who don't know what it's like. Dear friends, like Michael, like Frankie.
Yeah.
I know people that are willing, Frankie is kind of funny because he is so happy about the life he has now, but he makes it clear, I want to spend the rest of my life helping people so they never have to go through what I went through. Exactly. And he means that when he says it. And that's what he's doing. He's on the show with my Saturday show all the time. He'll be on here with us eventually, and we look forward to it. Joe, thanks for all the work of putting this together, man, and this is going to be a lot of fun.
Uncle Mike, really enjoyable. And again, a big thank you to Michael Diedrich.
Thank you guys very much for giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Visit him at Storm King
Lounge and Fair.
Lounge and Fair.
Especially
Sorry,
Memorial Day weekend, because we're going to have that event.
Yes. Sounds good.